Welcome back to another episode of the What We're Watching podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jenny, and today we're talking about What a Girl Wants.
I'm so happy to be talking about this. I haven't seen this movie in so long, but it was one of my favorites as a teenager.
Me too, and I think I say this in all of our nostalgic picks, but I forgot that I knew this movie like the back of my hand. Like, I remembered everything, and I was like, oh my gosh, I did watch this a lot as a kid.
Same.
I totally forgot.
Same, I love it. So the logline is, an American teenager learns that her father is a wealthy British politician running for office. Although she is eager to find him, she realizes it could cause a scandal and cost him the election.
This is such a cute movie.
It really is. I'm so excited to hear what you guys think about this, because I have a feeling this is going to be like a collective memory jog for all of us. Of just like, oh my gosh, yes, it has Amanda Bynes, it has Colin Firth. I think you guys will remember a lot of it, so I'm excited to talk about it.
So this movie came out in 2003, and I had no idea, but it's based on a play from 1955 called The Reluctant Debutante.
This is our first based on a play, I think. It's always something, but never a play.
I don't think so, no.
I don't think so either.
I feel like it's loosely based.
Probably. I love that it came out in 2003. I feel like that's also almost our money year. Weren't we saying that 2004 is like the year that all our favorite rom-coms came out?
Yep. To be a girl in 2003 and 2004. It was the best. The director of this movie is Denny Gordon, who also did the Mary-Kate and Ashley movie, New York Minute.
Wow.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like that's another one that I could not tell you the plot at all, but if I saw it, I'd be like, yep, I know everything about this movie. And weirdly, she also directed the movie Joe Dirt. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Oh, Denny is a she.
Yes.
Okay. No, I've never heard of Joe Dirt. That sounds very different.
It's a David Spade movie. It's very different. Very different.
That's weird. Interesting.
It's a departure from the girl rom-com, for sure.
Should we talk a little bit about the cast?
Yeah, starting with the one, the only.
Amanda Bynes.
Love her. Love her so much. She plays Daphne Reynolds. She was only 16 while filming this.
That is younger than I would have guessed. Yet again, same thing with Hilary Duff from A Cinderella Story. She's younger than the character.
Yeah, true. That's interesting.
Which I think is very unique. I feel like, at least, I don't know, stereotypically, I always thought that they used actors that were usually a few years older that could play younger. But no, not here.
At least not for the ones that were made for teenagers. They really just wanted those teen idols at the time.
I guess their age was probably pretty irrelevant because, like you said, they just wanted to use the big teen stars at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they were maybe a year younger than the characters, it doesn't really matter because they wanted the name.
True, yeah. And I was going to watch anything with Amanda Bynes and Hilary Duff in it at the time.
Absolutely.
Alexis Bledel from Gilmore Girls and Jessica Simpson wanted this role.
Wow.
How old was Jessica Simpson at the time? Isn't she older?
I thought older, but I could weirdly see either of them in this.
Yeah, I could definitely see Alexis Bledel.
Mm-hmm. Amanda Bynes almost feels like the choice, like the happy medium choice out of those three. Like, I feel like Alexis Bledel leans more Rory Gilmore, obviously, and then we have Jessica Simpson, I think, on the other end, and I think Amanda Bynes at this time was a really good middle. I think she was perfect for it.
Yeah, me too. What's your favorite Amanda Bynes movie or show?
Oh, this one.
Really?
Yeah. I love She's the Man too, but I was not big on The Amanda Show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no. I was Brian and I talk about this a lot. I was a hardcore Disney kid, not a Nick kid. So pretty much any of the Nick shows, not for me.
And I was the opposite. I was a Nickelodeon girl. But I think this says a lot about us and how our senses of humor developed.
Yeah.
So this makes sense.
I think so too. You'll have to talk to Brian because he was a big Nickelodeon kid. So he probably knows the shows.
Okay. Yeah, I loved her on The Amanda Show. She was also in this show called What I Like About You, which my mom and I used to watch together. She moves in with her sister. I think they live in New York City. It was a really cute show. I actually want to rewatch it now that I'm talking about it. And then I forgot she was in Hairspray and Easy A.
I forgot she was in Easy A. I love that movie.
Yeah, I think that was her last big role.
Let us know if you guys want an episode on Easy A, because I would love to do that. I don't know how it's aged.
Yeah, my guess is like probably poorly, but we'll do an episode on it if you want.
Yeah. Okay, so Easy A was her last role. or her last big role, I guess, at the time. Was that because of the whole conservatorship thing?
I think so. I don't remember what year Easy A was, but I do know that Amanda was struggling with substance abuse and with body dysmorphia pretty severely. Like, she couldn't watch herself in these roles. I think she retired from acting at a certain point after Easy A, and she was in a conservatorship from 2013 to 2022. Which, for those who don't know, that's when a judge appoints someone to manage the personal or financial affairs of another person who's incapable of fully managing their own affairs. Yes, I took that from the internet. And that's what Britney Spears was in, which I feel like that's how everyone kind of started learning what a conservatorship was because of Britney Spears.
Definitely.
But yeah, Amanda's had a tough time. She is no longer under the conservatorship, though.
Do you know, are we, like, I assume we're fully in support of the fact that she's not in a conservatorship anymore, similar to Britney Spears, but do you know what the situation was and how that ended, or was it just a set period of time?
It sounds to me, from the limited research that I did on it, it sounds like her parents were fully in support of her being out of the conservatorship, and they were the ones who were managing her affairs. So I think it might have been the best way that could end, but I'm not exactly sure about the details.
That sounds positive if her parents seem supportive and they were willing to let it go. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that she also had a podcast. It was called Amanda Bynes and Paul Szymanski, the podcast. And I remember us being excited when it came out, or when it was supposed to come out, because we were interested to hear from her, because obviously we hadn't heard from her in a long time. But it did not last very long. It only lasted in December 2023. I think they did one episode, or maybe a few.
Yeah.
I know they did one episode and then paused the show, and she came out and said that's because she had trouble booking the A-list talent that she wanted to interview. And I have a quote from her. It says, "We are not able to get the type of guests that I'd like on the show." And then she named Jack Harlow, Drake, and Post Malone as examples. And then they ultimately stopped it. So I don't know if they came back from the pause and did an episode and then stopped, or if that was it, if it was just one and done.
Yeah, I think she also said she wanted to focus on her manicurist license instead. I think that might be what she's doing now.
Cool.
Although I did recently see that she said on social media that she is going to be focusing on her mental health. Like, she's doing some kind of group mental health treatment. So that's good.
Yeah, that's good. I know that there was a lot of chatter on social media when she announced the podcast when it first came out about Paul, because Paul is not a famous person, her co-host, but he's supposedly Amanda's best friend, or at least was, and he is a scientist and PhD student at UCLA.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was expecting him to be like a writer or like something in the creative film world or the podcasting world. Nope. I think that's just her friend in real life. However, his ex-roommate / dog sitter, I read both in different articles, so maybe both, maybe just it was his roommate and she would watch his dog, like came out to allege that he's a sociopath.
Oh, no.
So, and this was also in December 2023 when this was coming out. At least I think I remember all these articles coming out in December 2023. I read a few of them. So that made me think, is it just because she can't get the guests she wants? Or is it because it was announced to this kind of criticism of her co-host? And maybe there's something behind the allegations. I don't know if there's more. So interesting.
That's weird. I will say that, Amanda is very different in her social media posts nowadays, in the way that she talks, in the way that she acts. But for the most part, I see the comments being very nice and supportive of her, which she probably needs, honestly. So when she posted that video about how she couldn't book the A-list talent that she wanted, and so that's why she'd be stopping the podcast, everyone was like, Amanda, we're here for you and we want to hear you talk. We actually don't care about any of those people. And the more you do the podcast, like, the more it'll grow and the more you'll be able to get the people that you want. Just stick with it. But I think she just has her sights on other passions right now.
That's good. I'm happy for her to be pursuing what she wants to be and to have supportive fans still. I think that's great.
I saw this comment that someone was like, you need to have a podcast where you're doing someone's nails and interviewing them while you're doing their nails.
Yeah.
I was like, that is a great idea. That combines both of your passions in one.
I love that.
I would watch that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, should we talk about Colin Firth?
Yes, he plays Lord Henry Dashwood. He's from everything. He's from Bridget Jones' Diary, The King's Speech, Mamma Mia, Love Actually. Pride and Prejudice, which your mom probably wants me to mention.
Pride and Prejudice is my mom and my sister Hannah's favorite movie, so they'll appreciate that.
I think he's from the TV show or something. You guys will have to let us know.
And they're screaming. At first they're like, yes. And they're like, no, you don't even know. I knew him from Mamma Mia. I love him in Mamma Mia.
Which I've never seen still.
We have to do an episode on that. Let us know, guys, if you would like that, because I would.
They originally wanted Hugh Grant for the role in What a Girl Wants. And he said, "Are you crazy? I'm not old enough to have a teenage daughter." Which made them all laugh because he was in his 40s at the time. So I think it was a joke from him. Also, I think Colin Firth is the same age as Hugh Grant, probably. They were like same ballpark. So that was just funny to me.
That is funny. I could see Hugh Grant in this role, though.
Totally. Yeah. Colin wasn't sure about the role because even though he had just done Bridget Jones, which is a rom-com, he considered himself a strict drama guy. But the director, Denny Gordon, won him over, and he ended up happy with the final movie. And Denny Gordon said, "I remember when we finally screened the movie, Colin came up to me and said, 'Well, Denny, you're a very clever girl. I don't need to hear any more praise than that. I'm good. I can live forever now.'" Which, same. If Colin Firth said that to me, I'd be like, okay, that's all I need to hear ever.
Absolutely. I know on the personal side, Colin was married to an Italian producer and activist named Livia Gugioli. I have no idea if that's how you say it. But they were married for 22 years before they separated in 2019, which is a long time.
Wait, that's so sad. That's a long time.
I know. Now he's with a screenwriter named Maggie Kahn. They've been together since 2022.
Oh, okay. I really liked Colin Firth in this role. I just thought he was perfect for it. And he just was so compelling as a dad who hadn't seen his daughter in a really long time. What did you think?
He plays a very similar character in Mamma Mia.
Okay.
And he's just so good at it. He's so good at doing the, I'm serious, I don't care, but you know he cares so much. He's very good at that.
I love that.
Yeah. Should we talk about Kelly Preston, who plays Libby Reynolds, who's Daphne's mom?
Yeah. Okay, I didn't recognize her, but as I was researching, stuff started to come together and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. She's been in so many movies. She married John Travolta in 1991 and they had 3 children. Did you know that?
I knew that she was married to John Travolta, but I didn't know they had kids.
And then I didn't know that she and John were Scientologists. Are they famously Scientologists and I just totally didn't know?
I feel like yes, but I also didn't know.
Yeah, me either. She did pass away in 2020 from breast cancer, which is really sad.
Very sad.
It's also sad because I believe that she and John lost one of their sons when he was at a pretty young age as well.
Oh.
Yeah, I just kind of feel for their family having 2 big losses like that.
That's really sad. Okay, it's hard to pivot from that, but we have one other person to cover. Oliver James, who is Amanda's love interest in this movie. He plays Ian Wallace. And this was his first movie.
Yeah, and he actually wasn't in that many movies. Did you recognize him from other stuff?
No.
Okay, the other huge thing that he's in is Raise Your Voice with Hilary Duff, which I know you haven't seen. I was obsessed with Raise Your Voice as a kid. I loved that movie, and I had the biggest crush on him in that movie because he was the love interest. And so I guess I just thought, oh yeah, there's that guy that's in all of those teen rom-com movies. But no, he was only in these 2.
Yeah, I was watching this and he's really good and he's really endearing and I was surprised I haven't seen him more.
Yeah, he's so talented. I was like, okay, why isn't he in everything? I love him. So the director said about Oliver James, there were a lot of really fabulous young UK men coming in to read for that part, but Oliver was just so charismatic and had such a beautiful singing voice, and that was sort of key for us that he could sing. And Oliver was just, I mean, why was this guy not a big pop star? So even the director is agreeing with us that, like, I don't know why he didn't go off to be some huge star.
Yeah. Do you know what he does now?
Yeah, he leads a very private life now, and he's a psychotherapist.
Wow.
I know.
Child star turned therapist. I love that.
And he did do music for a little while. He does do all of his own singing in this movie. which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, go Oliver James. He's living his quiet therapist life now.
Love that.
So in that quote that I mentioned earlier, the director said that a bunch of fabulous young UK men came in and read for the part, and one of them was Henry Cavill, who is Superman. He's in The Witcher. I feel like you guys probably know who he is. And it's kind of interesting to picture him in this movie alongside Amanda Bynes.
Should we get into the movie?
Yeah, let's do it.
So when the movie starts, we're kind of like flying through New York City and we're seeing all of these different cityscapes until we get to Chinatown. And this is where we learn that Daphne was born in New York City in a fifth floor walk up in Chinatown. And she says that every year on her birthday, she wished her dad could be there. And every year her mom tells her the same story about her parents. And in the story, her mom says, once upon a time, a singer named Libby met Henry in the deserts of Morocco. And they rode around together on motorcycles and fell madly in love. And we're watching all this happen. And then they were married shortly after in the desert in a sort of unofficial ceremony. And then Henry brought her back to England to meet his family. But then when they got there, they found out that Henry's family was really unhappy with Libby and she was not the kind of woman that they wanted for him. And then when Henry's father died, Henry became Lord Dashwood. And at that time especially, no one thought Libby was suitable to be a lady because she would sort of inherit that title because his father passed away. So she left. And after she left, she had a daughter named Daphne. And then we fast forward to Daphne's 15th birthday, where her mom is telling her the same story. So we know she hears this every year.
What an amazing story to look back on every year on your birthday. Like, I just think this is so romantic and cool, except for the part where, you know, she leaves. And we do see a glimpse of, I think Henry's advisor is telling Libby that she needs to leave if she wants what's best for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gives a letter to Henry that was, quote, written by Libby saying there's another man. But we'll find out more about that later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that we get all this information up front. I feel like we never get that. And I also kind of love that Libby tells the whole true story to Daphne. Because I feel like we see a lot of movies with single parents with a kid where it's like, how come we never talk about so-and-so, like in The Parent Trap?
Mm-hmm.
But in this story, she gets the whole background, which I kind of love.
Yeah, I think ever since she was 3 or something, she knew everything about her dad. And I love that. Then we flash forward to Daphne's 17th birthday, and she has to work with her mom. And we learn that Daphne is a catering waitress, and her mom is a wedding singer, so they sometimes work together, which I always thought was really cute.
I know, I love that. And then at the wedding reception, one of Daphne's classmates is there, and she says that she's prepping to go to Duke, and she has an internship this summer. And when she asks Daphne what she's doing, Daphne says, going to the University of the Undecided. And the girl goes, I've never heard of that.
Wasn't she like, is that in Ohio?
Yeah.
Then during the father-daughter dance at the wedding, Daphne is really sad. We know that she wishes she had a relationship with her dad because she's never met him. And as she's cleaning up after the wedding, her mom comes up to comfort her. And in their conversation, we learn that Daphne's mom never told Henry she was pregnant. I totally forgot this part, but at the end of their conversation, they say these really cute lines that once I heard them, I was like, oh my gosh, I love these. I totally remember them saying this now. But Libby says, I love you a million Swedish fish. And Daphne says, I love you a million red M&Ms.
So cute.
It's so cute.
That night, Daphne looks up her dad online and she finds an updated picture of him because I think she just has a picture from their wedding. I'm surprised she hadn't done this before. That was kind of my thought.
Yeah, Google exists.
Yeah. And then she packs her bag and she leaves. And she takes a taxi to the airport.
At home, we see her mom listen to a voicemail that Daphne left behind that explains she thought she wanted to take a gap year before college, but what she really needs is to find her dad.
And then we see her in London. This movie moves so quickly in the beginning. Like,
I know.
When I was watching it, I was like, we are 10 minutes in, maybe, and she's already in London, and so much has happened.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Just get us into the meat of it. I'm ready.
Exactly. Tell us everything we need to know, and I want to dive in. And so we see her in London, and she takes a double-decker bus around the city, and we see all the main sites. It was very reminiscent of The Parent Trap, which we recently talked about. And she winds up in a hostel. And inside the hostel, there's a guy playing guitar, and her mom's a musician, so she goes up to him and asks about his guitar. And we find out that he also works at the front desk of the hotel. This is Ian. And then she sees her dad, Lord Henry Dashwood, on the TV talking about giving up his seat in the House of Lords to run in the election. And the newscaster on the TV also mentions that he's engaged to be married this summer, which is news to Daphne.
I found out this fun fact. The hostel is the same building that was Bridget Jones' apartment in Bridget Jones' Diary. And that's just a random fun fact because Colin Firth was in Bridget Jones' Diary.
Cool.
Yeah. So Daphne walks around London with Ian, the guy from the hostel, and talks about her dad. Then she takes a bus to the Dashwood Manor where her father lives, and a guard asks if he can help her, and she says, no, and she kind of walks away. And then instead she walks around to the side of the house and sneaks in through the bushes and falls over the wall. I always remember that scene.
Yeah. It was funny to me that she didn't just tell the guard, I'm here to see Henry. I guess she just assumed that they wouldn't let her in.
Yeah, I think she just knew instantly, no, they're just going to kick me out and then they're going to like be watching out for me to break in. So I might as well just break in.
Sure. Inside the house, Henry's fiance and her daughter Clarissa are eating and talking shit about the older staff at the house. I think his fiance Glynis makes a comment about how she's going to fire them once they get married. It's giving Meredith Blake.
Mm-hmm.
And then Henry's mother, who lives with them, walks in. So that would be Daphne's grandma.
And then Daphne walks up to the window, and Clarissa, the stepsister-to-be, sees her and screams. And Henry tells someone to call the police because they think it's the paparazzi. And Henry runs outside, and he catches Daphne, and he drags her into the house. And she's very confused, but tells him that she has a picture of him from her mom, Libby. And she holds up her birth certificate and says, "You're my father." And he's at a loss for words, but then says that it must be a mistake. And Daphne says, "I shouldn't have come."
Again, this is one scene. Like, she walks in the house with the photo, with the birth certificate, and he's like, get out. And she's like, you're right, I shouldn't have come. Like, it happens so fast. Like, I feel like some movies, this would be the whole movie. Like, her making the decision to go to London, her meeting this boy in London, finally working up the courage to go to her dad's house and telling him the news, and him saying, no, get out. And we are 15 minutes into the movie.
Which I love. I love that.
Me too. There's so much going on. I love it. The main reason that Henry's upset, we find out, is because Daphne has known about him for her whole life, but her mom never told Henry. So this is the first Henry's hearing of it, even though Daphne says that she's been hearing the story about him since she was 3. But Henry's mom, Daphne's grandma, immediately is like, no, she needs to stay with us for the time being. And everyone, especially Henry's fiance, is very concerned about how this is going to look to the press because of his new campaign.
Then Henry's mom shows Daphne to her room, and it's so beautiful. It's just gorgeous. I don't even know how to explain it.
Huge. So royal looking.
Yeah.
And then Libby calls Henry to ask if Daphne is all right, and Henry asks how she never told him that he had a daughter. And Libby says it's because she didn't want Daphne to get hurt like her.
Again, with this movie moving fast, I love that the parents actually communicated with each other right away.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah, I was surprised.
So the next morning, Henry and his advisors have a meeting to talk about how they're going to spin Daphne to the press. Meanwhile, Daphne is listening to music and dancing all over the house and flailing around. She's jumping on the bed. I loved all of those scenes as a kid. And the staff are just very concerned about her.
Yeah. She's very different from the rest of the very buttoned up English family.
Uh-huh.
And then Ian Wallace calls the house to get a hold of Daphne, and Clarissa is the one that picks up the phone, and he asks Clarissa to tell Daphne that he called, and she says, I will, and then hangs up and says, not rude.
I forgot about that part. Honestly, iconic, though.
Yeah.
Henry asks Daphne to accompany him to the royal dress show while Clarissa is listening in. And Daphne says, that would be cool, but we can tell that she's so excited to get to do something with her dad, and she's just playing it off very casual. And then she gives him a scrapbook of photos of her growing up because she thinks that he would want to have that. And you can tell this affects him deeply. I think maybe in this scene he looks at like the first page and sees a photo of her as a newborn baby with her mom, Libby, and he just like can't take it, and he closes the book and puts it away. And I'm like, this would be hard. This would be so hard to find out you had a kid and you missed their entire childhood.
Especially because he thought that Libby was seeing someone else, and that's why she up and left him, because that is what the advisor basically told him. And so to not have the opportunity at all to like know that you had a kid. Yeah, it's just really sad.
Mm-hmm.
And then Clarissa helps Daphne choose her outfit for the fashion show. But really what's happening is she's sabotaging Daphne so that she looks out of place. I think she shows her a bunch of like really casual, like trendy outfits and tells her specifically not to wear pearls. But then Clarissa is wearing this little like skirt suit with pearls. So she's just doing it to make her stand out like an American more than she already does.
So mean. And then Ian comes to the house to look for Daphne, but the guard won't let him in.
And then we see Daphne getting ready for the show. And I feel like this is one of the most iconic scenes in the movie. This is where the like shower faucet turns on and is spraying crazy all over the bathroom and gets her soaked and everything is wet. And then she's running across the upstairs landing while everyone is ready downstairs. And she's like soaking wet in a towel and is saying like, I'm coming. But she's running super late and everybody's waiting for her. And so then Clarissa and her mom tell Henry that Daphne is just going to have to come later on her own because they need to leave. And this is also, by the way, a royal fashion show. So Prince William, Prince Harry, and I think the Queen were all supposed to be there. Maybe not the Queen, but it was a bunch of the royal family.
So since Daphne is late to the fashion show, they won't let her in the front door because no one knows who she is. And so she sneaks in the side and they tell her she's up. So she accidentally walks on the runway as a model.
Iconic. This was, I think, the scene I remembered the most.
Yeah, when you say what a girl wants, I think of this scene of her just coming out on the runway and realizing what was happening and then having to just kind of go with it and pretend to model.
Yeah.
Also, this creepy guy in the front named Armistead, who will come back later, says, she can dump tea in my harbor anytime. I think he's the one who says that.
Mm-hmm.
And then she falls off the stage.
Yeah.
Because she's so clumsy.
Yeah. Brian was watching this with me, and I didn't even catch that he said that. And Brian goes, oh my God, that dude just made a Revolutionary War joke. So I had to back it up and then wrote it in the outline.
That's so funny. After the show, Princess Charlotte shows an interest in Daphne because Daphne is playing with her dog and being really sweet. And Charlotte asks how long Daphne will be staying, and Henry says she'll be staying for the season. And this really frustrates his fiancée, Glynis.
And then that night, Daphne and her dad have a moment in the kitchen. And this is also one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie, where they both have bowls of, it's either Cocoa Puffs or like Cocoa Krispies, whatever the British version of that is. And we find out they both love midnight snacks. This is a thing that both of them do, because they both wind up there. It's not like they went together. And Henry mentions that it's the first time he's ever seen Princess Charlotte like someone. And then he says they'll have to arrange a coming out party for her if she's staying for the season. So he's like trying to integrate her into his life there. It's really cute.
Yeah, I think it's adorable. And I love that him just seeing her being herself is what's making him go, oh yeah, she's not leaving anytime soon. She's staying for the whole season.
Yeah.
And now he's like, oh, and you should have a coming out party and we should do all of these things. And I just love that. Then the next morning, Henry tells Daphne there's a ball coming up, and Glynis and Clarissa offer to help Daphne find a dress, which we've already seen this is bad. We don't need their help with dresses, but they're going to help.
And to the surprise of no one, the dresses they point out are not very pretty. And then Clarissa makes a comment to her that she doesn't fit in and she should probably go home. Rude. And then Clarissa also tells her to stay away from Armistead, who is the hot guy from the fashion show that Clarissa likes.
Who made the Revolutionary
War joke, yes. So I feel like this is mostly jealousy because of him on Clarissa's part, less because of actually her soon-to-be stepdad and all of that. And then Henry's mom tells Daphne that Clarissa's just threatened. So we kind of get confirmation from the grandma. And we can tell that she actually really likes Daphne, even though Daphne is a little bit like touchy and wants to hug her and like is very casual, and the grandma is like very proper. You can tell she still really likes her. But she does warn Daphne that the press might paint her in a bad light and people might root for her to fail because she is this kind of American newcomer into this important family.
And when she goes inside, Daphne decides to alter her dress with scissors to make it more like her.
I also love when she does this.
Me too. Ugh.
I always wanted to do this to a dress.
Me too, but mine would turn into rags.
Yeah, I would not get better. And so at the ball, we see Henry escort Glynis and Clarissa, and then Henry's mother, Lady Jocelyn Dashwood, escorts Daphne. And by that, they kind of walk up together. But I think because they're ladies, they each walk down the stairs separately. And while they're walking up, she tells her the family motto is hang in there and you'll rock, which I think is funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Daphne is announced, the photographers take photos of her and everybody turns and pays attention. And you guys will remember this. This is when she has that sort of brownish chiffon, ruffly sort of robe almost over, tied with a ribbon. And that's the same fabric as the original dress. And she unties it and she has this gorgeous, like, one shoulder blue dress. And it's very a Cinderella story moment, which we just talked about, where she's at the top of the stairs and everybody turns to look.
Mm-hmm. I love that part. And then Armistead, the creepy guy, asks to dance with Daphne. And so Clarissa and her friends are all upset about this. But he is so gross. He's like hitting on her. He says women are just drawn to him. And he grabs her butt and she's just like, ugh.
Gross. Hate. And then we see Ian is playing the music at the ball. And she's so excited to see him. But I think he's confused to see her dancing with other guys. Like, I think he's like, what is happening here? Like, we had this good thing going. Now I'm not allowed in your house because there's guards there. And I'm seeing you at this dance when she is normally part of like the wait staff and her mom's a performer. And now she's kind of on the other side of it. I think he's just a little bit confused by the dynamic. But Jocelyn, Henry's mom, Daphne's grandma, notices that they like each other.
And then Daphne goes to talk to Peach and Pear, the hosts of the ball. And they're these two twins that are in these big white dresses. I feel like this I remember too so well. And Daphne tells them the party is great, even though it seems like some people are really bored. Both girls are like, she's so nice. Because I think Clarissa and her friends are really mean to Peach and Pear. And then Daphne runs into Ian, and he says he feels sorry for Peach and Pear because the party is going so poorly. And so Daphne tells him to change the music to liven up the party. And he does. The music changes. Doesn't he sing, "Get Up Off of That Thing"?
Yes, he does.
Is that the name of the song? I don't know. Daphne gets everyone to start dancing, but then they're dancing too hard. The music is too loud that the chandelier that is Peach and Pear's father's prized possession crashes and breaks. And he blames Daphne. Which Robert looked over at the TV at this part and he said, well, that's not her fault. That's whoever installed the chandelier's fault.
That's what Brian said too.
Oh my gosh, they're a match made in heaven.
Brian was like, that's a really poorly installed chandelier, I guess. And I was like, I guess.
This is why this is a girl movie. Get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here with your logic, with your engineering. And so the next morning, Henry has Cocoa Pops at breakfast because that's his new favorite. You can tell this is like his rebellious side, or like who he used to be kind of coming out, because he never would have had sugary cereal at breakfast with Glynis before. And then someone on their staff accidentally spills something on Clarissa. And we can see that there's this rift starting between Daphne and Henry, and then Glynis and Clarissa, where kind of Henry's in a good mood. He's having his Cocoa Pops, and then Clarissa gets something spilled on her and is just upset. And then also at breakfast, we see Daphne and Henry talking about music, and you can tell they're really starting to bond. Like, this is another thing they have in common. But then Glynis tells him he needs to leave for an appointment.
And then Ian shows up to pick up Daphne, and Henry sees he drives a motorcycle just like Henry used to. But now Henry is kind of in dad mode. He has really taken a liking to Daphne, and you can tell he's really uncomfortable with her hanging out with Ian. But he also doesn't really have a right to say anything right now because he isn't really a father figure in her life yet. So it's this awkward thing that he's kind of battling, and I just love this part. So then Henry decides to hang back and talk to Ian until Daphne is ready to leave with him, and then they ride off on his motorcycle for their date. But yeah, I just love this scene with Henry.
Yeah, it's like Henry transitioning into like, I used to be that guy and now I'm the dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cute. And so Ian and Daphne go to an outdoor market and they get kebabs and they shop. This is also very iconic. You guys will remember this, of them trying on different clothes and like all the different little stalls. It's really cute. And then Daphne tells Ian that she's going to behave from now on to make her father proud. And she practices balancing on a canoe. And he tells her that his mother was actually a debutante and his grandparents paid for him to get into great schools and social clubs. That's interesting, I think, to learn from Ian, that he presents like he's part of sort of Daphne and her mom's world, but he also kind of has one foot in Henry's more proper world. So then while Daphne is practicing balance on the canoe, they both fall in. And he says the iconic line, "Why are you trying so hard to fit in when you're born to stand out?" And they make out in the boat.
So cute. I love them together. And then Henry calls Libby to tell her their daughter rode off on the back of a motorcycle with some boy. He was like, "He's in a band." And she goes, "Oh, is he a drummer?"
Yeah, she's so calm.
And she thinks it's funny, and she reminds him that she spent a lot of time on the back of his motorbike.
And then Henry and his family go to a race, and Armistead warns Ian to stay away from Daphne, but he's not fazed by Armistead. That is no threat to him. And then Daphne reminds Armistead that he's supposed to be escorting Clarissa all summer, but he says he's actually attracted to Daphne. I hate him.
Yeah, he sucks.
Yeah, he sucks. So then she acts like she's going to kiss him, but then she ends up actually pushing him in the river, and the press, like the photographers that are all there, freak out. And Henry runs in and grabs Daphne away from all the cameras, and as they run away, Henry also grabs Ian's keys to his motorcycle and takes her away. It's really cute.
Henry drives them to a playground, and they hang out there for a little bit. And Henry says that Daphne really reminds him of her mom. And then they go get henna tattoos, and they shop at a street market together. I think it's the same street market that she was at with Ian. And then when they get home, the paparazzi are all around his house, so they sneak in through the side. So Henry is fully in his rebellious era again, and he tries on his old leather pants. And he's looking in front of a mirror, and he's doing all these crazy dance moves.
Yeah. Like his air guitar.
Yeah, so funny to see Colin Firth in leather pants doing this in front of a mirror.
Yeah.
And Glynis finds him and freaks out and says she wants the old Henry back.
The day after this sort of snafu at the race, Henry finds out that he's dropped in the polls and some of his public engagements and speaking arrangements have been canceled. And so he tells Daphne she needs to change to fit into their role in society.
So she does. She takes off her nail polish and shops for appropriate clothes. And it works. We see Daphne in lots of publications, and then Henry starts climbing in the polls again.
And then one day Ian comes to pick her up for a concert, and she comes downstairs to tell him that she can't go anymore because they're going to the Queen's garden party instead, and she forgot to tell him. And you can tell Ian's upset, and he can tell she's changed a lot, and he tells her to call him when Daphne re-inhabits her body. Sad.
Yeah, you can also just tell Daphne is not happy at all.
Mm-hmm.
She's just trying too hard to be somebody else, and it's sad because she's just not having a good time. Then Daphne's grandmother gives her the tiara that she wore at her own coming out party, and it's really beautiful. It's a sweet moment.
And then we get to Daphne's coming out party. She's in this gorgeous white dress, and she has gloves, and she's wearing the tiara from her grandmother, and she looks beautiful. And it kind of reminds me of Princess Diaries.
Yeah.
When she's in the white dress with the gloves.
Mm-hmm.
And we can tell her dad is really proud of her.
And then Ian is the singer at her party, of course.
Of course.
And he's singing The Way You Look Tonight when she comes in the room. But when she tries to talk to him, he says he doesn't want to hear it and asks what happened to the real her. And then her mom shows up because Henry's mom, Jocelyn, told her about the party. I love that.
I love Jocelyn.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
She's just so Team Daphne, behind the scenes. It's really cute.
She must remember how in love her son was at the time, too. So
Yeah.
I wonder if she's also matchmaker, you know?
Yeah, it makes me wonder because we heard so much in the beginning that, quote, Henry's family didn't approve of her, but I feel like his mom must have. So I wonder if it was more so his advising board that was in charge of his political career maybe didn't like her as much. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Or did Jocelyn change? I don't know.
Could be. So then Libby and Henry see each other again, and Henry's fiance mispronounces Libby's name twice, which made me roll my eyes because it was definitely on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And Henry asks Libby to dance, and Jocelyn looks very pleased with herself. And Daphne, you can tell, just loves seeing her parents together.
Then Henry's advisor, who is also Glynis's father, by the way, the father of... It's giving Game of Thrones. It's giving Game of Thrones, the advisor wants his daughter to marry into the royal family. And so sets it all up that way. But anyway, yes, Henry's advisor is Glynis's father, and he's talking to her and mentions that he had to get rid of Libby. And Daphne overhears this and freaks out, and Glynis drags her off to another room pulls her by the
Mhm.
arm. It's very violent, actually. I'm surprised nobody noticed and stepped in. And then she locks her in a room.
Yeah, this is very aggressive, like way more than I remembered.
It's like evil stepmother trope times a million.
Yeah. While Libby and Henry are dancing, Libby makes a comment saying that Henry wanted her to leave and then asks why he never tried to find her over the last 17 years. And then they get cut off because it's time for the father-daughter dance, which Daphne has obviously been waiting for forever, like we saw at the very beginning of the movie. But Daphne's locked away in another room, so Glynis suggests that Henry dances with Clarissa instead, and Libby leaves to find Daphne and helps her get out of the room that she's locked in, so thankfully Libby found her pretty quickly. After her mom lets her out, Daphne comes back into the room and the music stops, and it's super awkward because Henry's dancing with Clarissa, and Daphne can piece together what happened. And then she tells Clarissa that she's giving her what she deserves, and we think she's going to yell at her, but she actually just takes the tiara off her head and hands it to her. And Daphne says she doesn't want any of this, and she runs off and her mom follows her.
And Henry runs after them, and Daphne tells him she's done waiting. She dressed up for every birthday and wished that if she was good enough, he'd come find her. And now she's in the most beautiful dress she can imagine, but she just misses her old self. And Henry is upset. He seems like he's about to apologize. But then the queen comes in and Daphne leaves. Which, side note about the queen, she's played by a woman named Elizabeth Richard. I looked it up because I was like, this woman actually does look like Queen Elizabeth, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't
Oh my God,
her.
iconic.
Which I know is silly.
Queen Elizabeth in the movie. No, that would be incredible.
I was like, there's no way, right? So yeah, I felt dumb. But then when I looked up the woman who plays her, her name is Elizabeth Richard, and she plays Queen Elizabeth in every movie.
Wow. And her name is Elizabeth.
Yeah. Her IMDb, I mean, she hasn't acted in a long time. I don't know if she's passed away, but her whole filmography is her being Queen Elizabeth. And I just thought that was iconic.
I love that.
I do. I love that for her.
So then the next morning, Daphne and her mom leave London. And when they get back to New York, Daphne sees a guy on a motorcycle, and we can tell she's thinking about Ian. And back in London, Henry eats Cocoa Pops at night alone while Daphne eats them in New York at the same time. So it's just sad. Everybody's sad.
Henry goes to a Vote Dashwood event and starts giving a normal speech. And then he announces that he's withdrawing his candidacy. He says that he's changed and that there's one thing that matters more to him than his political aspirations. And I loved this speech from him. It was so good. His advisor, Alistair, is mad at him. But when Alistair tells him about how he sent Libby away when he found out she was pregnant, Henry punches him in the face.
Go, Henry. And then back in the United States, Libby is performing at another wedding and Daphne is waiting tables, so they're back to their old life. And during the father-daughter dance, Henry shows up. He walks into the wedding and he tells Daphne he needs to tell her something. He says he loves her and he's so sorry, and this is so cute. And then he says he'd never change anything about her, and she says she loves him too. And her mom is watching, crying, and they dance together during the father-daughter dance. And while they're dancing, her dad says, I think it's very important to bring a large present when you're groveling. And Ian steps out from behind him.
Yay.
So cute.
I just love that he shows up during the father-daughter dance when her entire life, all she's ever wanted is to have a father to dance with at a father-daughter dance.
I know.
It's so sweet. And then Libby and Henry reunite while Daphne and Ian start dancing or talking. I can't remember. And he says, there was never anyone else, was there? And Libby says, you never wanted me to go, did you? And they kiss and dance together.
So cute.
Does it kind of remind you of The Parents in The Parent Trap?
Totally. Oh, totally.
Where there was like a miscommunication where she wanted him to chase after her and then he never did.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's interesting. Like, where's the communication here?
I know. And then like 17 years later, in this case, and in Parent Trap it was 12 years, they're just like, yeah, there was never anybody else. It was always going to be you. It's so cute. But also,
wouldn't you have tried harder?
it just could have been them the whole time. I know. Where's nobody's calling.
Yeah, they needed to for sure.
So then this is how the movie wraps up. We see the four of them on the dance floor. They are the last ones there. And then we see Clarissa marrying Armistead. So we assume we jump forward in time a little bit. And Glynis is with somebody that seems important. I don't know who it is, but he's like wearing a top hat and she looks very unhappy. And then Alistair, her dad, who was Henry's advisor, is giving tours. He's like one of the double-decker tour bus guys. And then we see Daphne's parents get remarried in the desert. And then we also see that Daphne went to Oxford and stayed with Ian.
Cute. Love it.
So just check, check, check.
And then we see her parents, Jocelyn, the grandma, Daphne, and Ian all having lunch on a summer day. The end. Happily ever after.
Love. Again, this movie has so much information in it, but I love that we get all the information up front, like all the background, and then at the very end, we find out what happened to everybody.
I think why I like covering these really nostalgic 2000s movies is they are so heartwarming. And every week I look forward to watching something that just picks my mood up. I don't know, shows are so intense nowadays and movies are so intense and I love them, don't get me wrong. But it's so nice to go back to these just lighthearted, fun things, just because.
Totally. I totally agree.
In a 2018 interview, the director, Denny Gordon, was asked where she saw the characters 15 years later. And I thought this was really cute. She said, "Well, I imagine that Daphne's married and has children, and Henry's a grandfather. Henry and Libby lived happily ever after. I'm sure that Henry and Libby and Daphne and hopefully Ian are living happily ever after."
Oh, I love that.
And then she also mentioned that Alistair is still on a tour bus.
Good. As he should be.
Yay.
Well, thank you guys for listening. We loved talking about this movie. I hope this is as much of a favorite for you guys as it is for us, because this was a really fun one to rewatch.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I love a good Amanda Bynes movie. Let us know if there's another one that we should cover next.
If you liked this episode, please give us a 5-star rating and a good review. It means a lot to us.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.